This story is, at its core, one about things not going the way they're supposed to go. On that first Easter morning, 3 women were going to the tomb to do what they couldn't do on the day that Christ died. It had been the Sabbath, and so they hadn't been able to prepare his body for burial until now. But when they got to the tomb, they discovered that it was open. The heavy stone had been rolled away, and when they went inside, there was no body. And they were deeply upset because this wasn't the way it was supposed to go. But they were used to that because Jesus' life hadn't gone the way it was supposed to go. His friends and disciples had thought that he was a mighty warrior. He was supposed to change everything. He had brought them such hope. They thought he could be the Messiah who would liberate them from oppression. And yet, in the end, the world destroyed him. On Good Friday, the powers that be killed him and buried him. That wasn't the way it was supposed to go at all. And now all they wanted to do was give him the proper burial that he had been denied. But they couldn't find his body. They couldn't even let Jesus rest in peace. And that was not how it was supposed to go either. But as they went into the tomb, they saw 2 men dressed in dazzling clothes, angels. And the angels asked the women, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen." Well, that certainly was not the way it was supposed to go either. It was unbelievable, quite literally. Because when the 3 women went back to the rest of the disciples, they didn't believe them. Peter had to go see for himself, and he found the same thing they did. You can almost picture the women being like, "Really, Peter? We already told you that he wasn't there." But that wasn't how it was supposed to go either. Women weren't supposed to be trusted with news like that. Surely, if Jesus were to come back, he'd go tell the men first, right? I mean, they were the important ones. Nothing about this was making any sense. We are a lot like the women who come to the tomb expecting to see Jesus. We were supposed to come to church this morning together to discover that the tomb is empty. I think about that first Easter morning, about how nothing was going the way it was supposed to go. And I think about the world today. This is not how we expected to celebrate the resurrection of our Lord. We are not supposed to be in the midst of a pandemic in which many of us feel disconnected, desperate, anxious, alone, entombed in dismay, barricade off from our friends and our family. We are not supposed to feel broken in mind, body, spirit, and soul. This is so not how we expected to celebrate Easter. Some of us might be wondering, where is God in the midst of this? Where is Jesus? Sometimes I imagine God looking down on creation, full of so much heartache, and saying, "This is not the way it's supposed to go." The reality is that on some level, that's always been true of this world. After all, Jesus was the living embodiment of God's love and goodness and hope. And look what they did to him. Not even Jesus could escape being broken by this world. And yet, that was not the last word. Because on Easter morning, when those 3 women went to the tomb, expecting only to see the broken body of this man they had loved so deeply, he wasn't there. And these angels were talking about how he was alive. And absolutely none of it made any sense, because no one comes back from the dead. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. But yet, it was true. He was risen. He is alive. The world had done its absolute worst to Jesus. But in the end, God's love was stronger than that. God's love was stronger even than death. The angels asked the women, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" In their defense, I think they were just doing what made sense. It was the last place they had seen him. But they discovered that Jesus had mysteriously vanished. Poof, Jesus was missing. Here is what I believe. I don't think Jesus is missing now any more than he was that first Easter morning. I think he's still around, showing us that God's love is bigger than the worst the world can do. I think Jesus is doing some unexpected and extraordinary things right now. I believe that God is working through modern day angels to bring healing and new life into our virus-ridden, anxiety-infested world. The reality is that signs of resurrection are all around us. By that, I mean resurrection from the tomb of the virus, the vault of despair. They're in the people who have donated millions of dollars to research or buying medical necessities. They're in the brave healthcare workers, pantry volunteers, grocery store employees, pharmacy employees who are showing up for work despite the risk. They're in the people who are looking out for their neighbors, people who are making masks and donating them to hospitals, people who are contacting long-lost friends. The list of angels performing godly tasks are endless. Yes, we are in the midst of a horrific virus, to which I believe God is saying, this isn't the way it's supposed to go. And now we are going to go through this together, because that is how it's supposed to go. God's love will get us through our current crisis. In whatever situation we find ourselves, Jesus is there. Jesus is not missing. Jesus is risen. Jesus resides in Riverton, Colebrook, Winstead, Barkhamsted, Winchester, New Hartford, Torrington, Goshen, West Hartland, and yes, Jesus even crosses state lines to Pennsylvania, Florida, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. Jesus, he's no longer in the tomb. He resides in your hearts and in your homes. That is the way it's supposed to be.